episode is brought to you by In My Bag Apparel and Customs. In My Bag is a brand that collaborates with talented artists from across the country to bring some unique and exclusive concepts to life at a reasonable price. For $15 off your first purchase, visit whatnot.com/invite slash in my underscore bag 2023. That's whatnot.com/invite slash in my underscore bag 2023 for $15 off your first purchase. And make sure to check them out on Instagram as well at in my underscore bag 2023. Did you know your brain is constantly eating itself? This process is called phagocytosis, where cells envelop and consume smaller cells or molecules to remove them from the system. Don't worry, phagocytosis isn't harmful, but actually helpful. Preserve your gray matter. Remember, gray brains matter. Let's get into it. All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Playbook Podcast. I'm Prescott Kelly. I'm still trying to figure out this new soundboard. I've had it for a while, but I've been toying around with what button goes where, and we're still trying to figure it out. Welcome back to the Playbook Podcast. I'm Prescott Kelly. Today's episode, we are a few days removed from the Super Bowl. I've seen a lot of legacy swaying over the past few days. We'll get to Kendrick Lamar a little bit later on in the show. The actual pressure on Josh Allen really starts now, I think, with him winning his MVP. We'll get to that a little bit later on as well. But let's kind of dive into what most people are doing at the moment, and kind of moving the goalposts is basically the title episode of this. And we've seen it a lot through sports, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. From what I have gathered, the way that we just dissect sports, the way that we digest it, the way that we talk about it, is that it's only getting more and more divisive. It's only becoming more and more of debate sports television, even though it seems that people kind of in my age demographic, the people who are in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, have said we're kind of over it. We want something that's different than that, but you don't really seem to value what you're saying in that regard, and that it is still very much a Jordan versus Braun. It's a Mahomes versus Brady. These GOATs still matter to y'all. And whoever you have defended, and I've said this for a long time now, is that when it comes to sports, much like politics, like when you are firmly entrenched in something, no one's really going to be able to sway you off of what you are sitting on. Whatever you put business down on is where you land. Most people aren't even willing to have a conversation. That's kind of the problem that we run into, is that nobody wants to even have a conversation. But this is not going to be a full defense of Patrick Mahomes, because he did not play great. I will say this, though. He's been a starter for 6-7 years now. He's now been to 5 Super Bowls and is 3-2. Josh says, what do you want the Bills to focus on in the draft? We'll get to that a little bit later on. I want to stick for this for a moment. I need to be better about that too. Like, if I have a docket, I need to stick to my guns and then come back to what I want to. Because when I put this up to the actual audio platform, it sounds kind of scatterbrained, which is kind of what I am. So maybe we'll just run with the organic stuff. I'm going to get to the Bills stuff a little bit later on, though, Josh. Don't you worry about that. But for now, when we talk about the legacy and whatnot of Patrick Mahomes, is we're moving the goalpost every single time that anything happens. And it's not even just Mahomes. It also is Hurts. We moved the goalpost. I made this take the other day, which I appreciate. Josh was also in that conversation piece when I dropped it on the Playbook Podcast page, was if you didn't have Jalen Hurts as a top 5 quarterback before this Super Bowl, there's no way that you can have him as one now, because you're part of the problem at that point. It's, if you didn't think that he was right in the pocket, made bad decisions, and the only reason why he was good is because he's got everything else around him that's great, and an unstoppable play because of offensive line and him and Saquon. And even before Saquon got there, it was impossible to defend beforehand too. If you're using all of those narratives as to why you're discrediting him, they need to still be consistent with what happened just 2 days ago and a 1-game sample size, because the Super Bowl is a 1-game sample size, right? So in other sports, we get series. So if you have a bad game, you have the opportunity to make it back up, which, if you replay this game 10 different times, Patrick Mahomes only has that game. To me, I think he only has that game once. I noticed something, and I put this out on the Playbook podcast page as well. Was in the third is when I really was like, this game is cooked, right? I mean, it felt that way beforehand, but we've seen Mahomes he come back from 24 down to Houston. He's been down by 10 points in every single Super Bowl. It didn't really feel like this thing was done until the third. And the reason why I even mentioned that is every time that Mahomes had to scramble, he was constantly looking back, like there was somebody over his shoulder, because there were. Eagles blitzed 0 times the entire game. He had to look out for everybody that was in coverage. But my point is that when Hurts made the decision to run, he was decisive and he's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm getting out the pocket, scrambled, and had a couple of big 5, 6, 7, 8 yard pickups. Whereas Mahomes, every time he did it, he looked rattled and was constantly looking behind him. And I feel like that's when, to me, I realized, oh, this is over. This is done. Like, if you're constantly looking over your shoulders because you don't trust the protection behind you, you're cooked. And like I said, it was one of those things where Hurts was just more decisive in this game, especially when it got late, which is what we were always kind of worried about. I was like, what if? Now this is a completely different story because they were already up 34-0, right? So this is a completely different scenario versus had the roles been reversed. Then I think you would have gotten more of the, are we sure that Jalen's going to be able to come back from this? So before this game happened, the way that I said that the Eagles are going to have to get off to an early lead, and early can be misconstrued. And I mentioned this last week that it doesn't mean you got to get out to a 14-0 lead within the first 4 minutes. But possession wise, you got to get up on them early, only have the 2 or 3 possessions and the 14-point lead, regardless of how much time you take off the clock and regardless of how you get there. Get up by 14 and you have a chance on this thing. And then it just spiraled out of control, though. I think that what we've done is we're so hypercritical and hyperanalyze the day-to-day so much, is that everything is like the worst or the best thing that we've ever seen based on what we're seeing right now. Whatever just happened, that's the best, that's the worst. I do feel comfortable saying that game by Mahomes was his worst game that I've ever seen him play. Contradictory to the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, where I thought that even in a loss, that was one of the best games that I had seen him play. It's just one of the same issues still came back to go bite him. The bad O-line. And they couldn't block anybody. Like, let's be serious. That Philly team was in the backfield all day. They got 6 sacks, I believe, but it felt like they had 40. They were just constantly in Mahomes' kitchen the entire damn game. And this is something where, so before the season started, I mentioned this is my Super Bowl. I thought it would be Chiefs and Eagles, but I had the least amount of confidence in this Chiefs team of any other team that I picked over the past 3 to 4 years. I still felt like it would happen because you had 15, and they have 15, but he didn't play well. Okay. That doesn't mean that he's the only one to blame, but obviously, had they had won, him and the refs would have got all their flowers, and most of their ancillary pieces would have been pushed to the wayside. So when he plays as poorly as he did, he's going to take a lot of the smoke too. And that's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to the NFL. I don't necessarily subscribe to that rule, but I understand how that laps upon our shore. That's where we are, right? So I personally still think that Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL currently right now. I just do. That's a me thing. Right? I know there's going to be some back and forth on that debate, but currently right now in the NFL, it's still Mahomes getting to a Super Bowl with the O-line that they had, and getting DeAndre Hopkins midway through the season, Xavier Worthy missing time, Rashee Rice, the whole thing, right? Travis Kelce's damn near my age. There's just, these things are going to happen, right? But the fact that they got there is still an impressive feat to me. Now, again, moving the goalpost of, if they would have won, I feel like there's really not a whole lot of pushback you can do with greatest dynasty ever. 3 in a row, never been done. As a Bills fan, being 2-4 was something that was laughed upon when I was a kid. And then now that we're removed so far from that history, it has gotten to a point where it's a respected accomplishment, even though it fell short. Or more respectful, I should say. It's more respectful, even though losing all four of them is you still, you still bad and lost all four of them, and you got blown out completely in one of them against Dallas. But we haven't seen four in a row since then. And Kansas City still has the opportunity to get back next year. Will they? I don't know. It doesn't look good. But I mean, could you imagine going to four straight and then winning 3 of 4? Like, we've done this thing down to so much of, well, did you win this day? Okay, well, if you didn't, then your cheeks. We can't do that though, man. Because so for me, Mahomes is still the best in the business. You don't go to 3 straight Super Bowls if you can't, or if you at least don't have that in you. Now, I know that some people say we need to pump the brakes on greatest of all time right now. I have a real problem with us doing this with every single damn championship, is putting somebody automatically in the GOAT debate right from the get-go. That, or at least starting the conversation early. You can't do that while you're still playing, I largely believe. Okay, like I still have, even when Brady was playing though, that was me, was like, yep, that's it. That's the guy. And even while still playing, right? Now that we're a little bit further removed from that, I'm like, all right, Mahomes has the opportunity to do it, but I'm not saying that he's the greatest right now, because I don't do that anyways. That's just like I told you, man, the sports debate television thing is not for me. I don't like watching it. I don't like giving you that. You also, you'll want something different from sports. I'm trying to give that to you. A little bit of nuance, a little bit of context. So the goalpost moving of Mahomes should not be in the conversation anymore when he was 40 hours ago is asinine to me. And also saying that Jalen Hurts wasn't in your top 5, while also just the juxtaposition of, oh, well, now he is because he has a ring. But none of the moving pieces that y'all were criticizing him for the last 4 years, like the playoff run, y'all weren't doing that beforehand. And he wasn't great either. I think we need to clarify that. Jalen Hurts, it's like he had a monster, stupid game, right? But just for history's purpose, going toe to toe with Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls in the last 3 years and outplaying him in both, that is where the mythology of all this stuff kind of comes up. And this is where, like, the legacy, for lack of a better term, starts to come into play in how we address these guys individually. But for me, Mahomes is still the dude in the NFL right now. He's the only guy playing right now that's got 3. He's been to 5. And I don't think we're going to see him have the same stretch that Brady had, where he didn't win one for 10 years. I don't know if we'll see that. Now, maybe he never catches 7, but if he gets to 6 and has a better winning percentage, I mean, we're really splitting hairs right now. And especially in, man, at least the Patriots still have the cheating scandals, right? I feel like that still kind of looms over some people. I'm a little bit more further removed from it, where it doesn't really matter as much to me anymore. Like, I've kind of distanced myself from just that entire portion of Bill's history, because it doesn't really matter. But I will say that Kansas City has largely kind of had a similar run in division that New England did with Buffalo, when you're facing incompetent franchises, or just poorly run, or just don't have the roster construction that they've got right now. It's not the exact same, because New England ran into the 3 most incompetent franchises for 2 straight decades, which I don't even know how it's possible in a sport that is designed to have parity, that you have that kind of inconsistency for that long. And it's not the same, but it's similar when it comes to Kansas City. But for Jalen, it's something where we need to really reevaluate what's important to us, right? Because every single time I hop into one of these chats, it is always, look at the stats, look at the stats, look at the stats. The stats help for fantasy. I like doing DraftKings and all this other stuff as well. But that doesn't equate to the winning. And this is why I've been when I push back the way that I do, it is the sole purpose is to say, do you understand how ridiculous you sound on the other side of the argument? Joe Burrow is a classic example. When they weren't winning football games, it was, well, the stats are cool, but you're not winning. And then once they got hot towards the end of the year, it all of a sudden turned into, well, he can't do everything. And that's kind of my point is the beginning of that game, and we're getting a little sidetracked here, but in the beginning of the game, D Hop had a drop pass. And I know that that is going to sound like it's really that I'm kind of nitpicking on what are game changers, right? But what I saw when that happens and that kills a drive, it's his first time in a Super Bowl. Not to make an excuse, but if you can just get off to some kind of rhythm, the game still probably, I think Philly still wins this game. By the way that everything transpired, this seemed like it had a Philly W written all over it. But at least it would have been compelling to at least kind of get some of the butterflies out, right? That to me was a big point of the game, even though it was extremely early on. The other thing too, I want to give Philly a lot of credit too is I don't like to do this where we put it in the perspective of another team just took it more serious because they're all professional athletes, they all get paid. This is it's a job to do, but the Chiefs have been here now 5 different times. I don't know if that's the reason why they came out flat, but Philly treated every single down like it was their last, especially on defense. They worked Kansas City. They absolutely smashed them in the mouth time after time after time. And like they did, it just felt like they took it more seriously. But to kind of put a bow on this whole Jalen Hurts thing, and then we'll get over to the chat because that's starting to blow up. It's to me, it's just be genuine with yourself and what you actually take seriously in sports and what really matters, because I feel like Jalen does everything right from like the team locker room perspective, right? He doesn't throw AJ Brown on the bus, even though he's like a diva for wide receivers. He's got, I don't know how to, I'm confused and perplexed by Nick Sirianni and what am I supposed to think with this guy? I really don't know what I'm supposed to think. Like, is he just a Neanderthal? Is he a buffoon? Is he the perfect guy for Philly because he just went straight supervillain mode and just leaned into everything that people don't like about Philadelphia? He was like, I'll just be that guy. Then I don't know what to do with him. But it seems like Jalen just has the right aura around him. And it's just like he does all the intangible things, which we like to talk about. We have to backtrack and put some, not some respect on my name, but to put things back into perspective of like, I always hate when we do winner guy, because if you're not good, I've always done this with Tim Tebow, most specifically, is that if we do, Jimmy Garoppolo, if we don't know why you're good, but the team wins, we just label you under the blanket of winner guy. I don't know why you're here, but you are, so you must be a winner. And I hate the fact that too many people dumb it down to just that. But Jalen has enough talent, makes enough plays, and also just seems to kind of be an adult, even though he's like in his mid-20s. It just feels like he's got the locker room behind him. And I think he does more than what we want to give him credit for. And being to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and going toe-to-toe with Mahomes, even statistically, if we're just going to dumb it down to that, in the first one, and then just this team just being an overall just juggernaut. Like, I don't know, hats off to the Eagles, man. Like, I was impressed by how they were able to turn around from last year, from the worst defense to arguably the best defense, and was for a really long stretch of the NFL season. Fangio just seemed to really just fit with the city, man, because the Dolphins couldn't wait to get rid of him. And then he goes to Philly and turns it around with largely the same squad. I mean, we can make fun of the fans in the city all we want to, as far as them being bad fans or, wanting to throw snowballs at Santa and everything else. I mean, I get it, because I made the exact same comparison, but it seems like they just got the right group of dudes for the right time. I'll say this before we get to the chat. I'm actually going to, what I'm going to do is I'll get to the Saquon take for a second, put an advertisement for Dubby, because we can talk for like 20 straight minutes, dog. We get parts. But Saquon apparently is already talking about 3P, or maybe there's nothing to that. Maybe it's just locker room noise. Philly is in the predicament where it's not going to happen. I'll leave you at that. It's not going to happen, but I like his enthusiasm. They're built the right way to be able to do it. But it's almost like with the Bengals from a few years ago, where everybody thought that because the Bengals got to one, they'll just be able to get back because of the offensive talent in Joe Burrow. And I said, how are you going to pay everybody? And now you got no defense. And with Philly, they're young everywhere. But the problem is, like, in a year, Carter and Davis are going to want to get paid. Smith's going to want to get a new deal. Like, and anybody who isn't under contract already is going to, especially if they have this continued success. Because we've already seen just right now, Kellen Moore got poached. This thing isn't even like the parade hasn't even like necessarily even ended in Philly yet. They're like, we got Kellen Moore, and the Saints have already got a new dude. It's hard to keep these things going. So as far as like their roster construction, it's fine currently, but you have to find ways to pay certain people later. You have no idea what's going to happen in trades and free agency, who's going to get better and not, because now you've been a better team than, man, almost the entire NFC for the last number of years. Now you got the hardware. Now they're gunning for you. We're going to go ahead and pay some bills real quick. We'll be right back. Now, with this being primarily a sports podcast, we understand that hydration and energy are both very important, not just for pro athletes, but for pro podcasters like your boy over here. That is why DUBBY.GG, that's right, Dubby, has linked up with Chop It Up a Peascott to give you a 10% off your online order using promo code Peascott. They've got swag bags and shakers, energy drinks and hydration supplements, and everything in between. My wife loves the pine berry splash flavor. I'm more of a watermelonada guy, but you really can't go wrong with either. They're rich in vitamins B6, 7, 12, vitamin C, and other vitamins and minerals to make you be the best version of yourself. Once again, visit www.dubby.gg. Use promo code PSCOT for 10% off your purchase. Y'all know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. Let's get back into the episode. All right, so coming back, I like how I did a promotion for hydration and energy supplements while I'm drinking a beer over here. It's the American way, man. Hypocrisy is what we're built on. So I'm just here to just go and dive right on into that, lean real into it. So I'll still get to the Bill stuff a little bit later on. I want to get to the chat real quick though on some of the other topics. Josh Whiteman also says Mahomes hasn't surpassed Montana yet, getting destroyed in 2 Super Bowls goes against him, but he's not only 30 yet, so that's something. But the other thing too is like, so when it comes to like the resume building, I get it because Montana won 4, never lost any. But there was also a 3-year stretch where I think he got bounced in the first round of the playoffs 3 years in a row and had 0 touchdowns and 4 picks in that 3-year span. But that doesn't seem to matter, right? It's like the Jordan years. The years that he didn't do anything, those get swept under the rug. Like Montana, those years that he gets swept under the rug. And it's just now, because we have so much more information, we can just get to it so quickly. We can poke holes everywhere we want to. But there's also still the nostalgia of, well, this guy never lost in the finals. Well, there's also a stretch where they didn't make the playoffs or they played like just, absolute dog, which Montana had that 3-year run where he didn't. So, I mean, everyone's going to have their opinion on things, but it's the picking and choosing throughout history. We're going to say, well, this is why they're great, and just ignore other certain things to bolster our argument instead of being like, yeah, well, those things didn't really happen though. And get rid of that. 7 sacks. Tony Burton was in the. I don't even know if he's in the chat anymore, but Burton's an Eagles fan. Fly Eagles fly. He's Uncle Philadelphia. He'll always have a special place in my heart, and I'm glad that Philly got another one. This one didn't feel. I don't even know the right way to phrase it, because there was a lot of the last one against the Patriots. There was a lot of yards, a lot of scoring, and it felt kind of gimmicky, like from both teams. Like there was just trickery, and not that it was sloppy, but you got Philly specials and like end rounds and stuff. Like this just felt like it was just a good old fashioned. It was just belt to the entire start to finish. Like this gave off vibes of Seahawks Broncos from a number of years ago and I think that's another important part of this stat or not the stat, but the way that it felt was this was supposed to happen. Like this was the final boss, right? Because when the Broncos and Seahawks played each other, Peyton had, I think he won league MVP that year, but he only threw for like 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. he was just stupid offensively. He was just ridiculous. And then you played Seattle. They got hit in the mouth. They had a bot snap on the first play, and you're like, oh, here we go. And this one just felt like Kansas City was just finding ways to win. And my argument for finding ways to win is great. But when you only have close games, it's going to come back and bite you somehow. For me, it's almost better to have more losses in the regular season, but show me that you have more ways to win, right? Because the Vikings have been a prime example of this a few years ago. Everything was a 3-point win. Everything felt it was close, and it felt like luck. And if you can show me different ways that you can win, have the 200-yard game on the ground, blow somebody out, have a 20-point victory, have a 20-point comeback victory. That's like and I mentioned this before, and the Detroit Lions and Houston Texans game this year is when I actually knew that Detroit was a real thing. Like they're not back, but I'm willing to finally succumb to this isn't your old Detroit team. I don't care what they did last year or the beginning of this year. Finding different ways to win means something to me. And they only had these block punts and late. They were all real close comeback wins. It's like it's not sustainable, but as long as you got 15, I'm not going to bet against you. And I think that was this Super Bowl just felt like it was the final boss. Philly was the final boss, and they just laid the hammer on them. Let's see what else you got. I see what you're saying. I didn't have Mahomes as the new GOAT if he won. I think he solidified an undeniable number 2 at the time spot if he won. I don't think it's possible for him to ever get to the GOAT title, especially since he already has more turnovers than Brady, and Brady couldn't throw over the middle half his career. I don't know. It is a again, I don't really divulge into greatest of all time stuff. It's just not something that I usually do. But if the standard right now is Brady and we're doing it strictly based off championships, there's a good chance that he never gets there. But again, we kind of alluded to this earlier, was that Brady had a 10-year run where he didn't have any. The other thing is, I don't think that Mahomes is going to play until he's 45. So you're automatically going to lose however many years he doesn't play. But if he's 28, 29 now, realistically, and getting the best version of Mahomes, you probably have a 5 or 6 year window, because I'm tired of teams paying quarterbacks until they're 40, like the Green Bays and technically New York, the Falcons now with Kirk Cousins, also with Matt Ryan and Roethlisberger. Like, you've got to stop paying these guys until they're damn near 40. There was one Tom Brady, and that was it. Now, maybe Mahomes can play until he's 40. I don't know, but realistically, he's got like a 6-year window to get as many Super Bowls now as Brady did. And because there's no guarantee you're going to get another Travis Kelce. There's no guarantee you're going to get another Tyreek Hill now, even though Xavier Worthy's fast as hell. He's not Tyreek. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get another Chris Jones. Spagnuolo might get another gig. There's just too many variables and too many factors to say that he could become the GOAT. Just if we're going just off rings alone, if we're just doing rings culture, it's going to be really hard for him to get to 7. But even if he ties him, there's going to be so many people who say, well, you know what? Tom's going to do the Ray J of I hit it first. Like if we're going with Not Like Us to that's one of the other greatest diss tracks ever too. And that's going to be what everyone said. He did it first. So I don't know. Anyway, let me go back into the chat real quick. Noah Gussis is in the building. He goes, as a Broncos fan, I hope the Chiefs completely collapse. I hope Taylor makes a breakup song, and I hope Patrick realizes if he had all state instead of State Farm, he could have avoided that mayhem. I saw that the other day. I thought that was funny. Yeah, the infomercial was funny. Why you gotta bring the Broncos into us? I'm not trying to bring the Broncos into us. My thing is mostly, I mean, I know that there's some Broncos fans are going to be super jacked that they've got Peyton and Bo Nix. I don't know. Bo Nix exceeded my expectations this year, and I know that Patrick Stanwart won Defensive Player of the Year, but I don't know if it's enough for me to really buy into it. I need to go. Oh, so when I put the when I put the boots to Buffalo about the whole four Super Bowls and losing them all, Josh had an interesting point. He goes, man, it's all about how you spin it, man. Just say only ever four consecutive conference championships. Just gotta spin it the right way. And I like that. I appreciate I appreciate that. Like you're just trying to look out for me. I got you, man. Um, but to move on to we'll get to Josh Allen now because I know that Josh Whiteman is a huge Josh Allen advocate. So I want to get to that real quick. The reason why I say that y'all need to pray to the gridiron gods that Josh Allen wins a Super Bowl next year is what has been the media narrative about Lamar? He's great in the regular season, but what he's done in the playoffs. Now, I understand. Now we open up a whole other can of worms as far as well. Josh Allen's played better in the playoffs. True. But what we're doing is Joe Burrow is there's only now technically with Hurts. There's been what three people to beat Mahomes in the playoffs, and it's Brady, Burrow, and now Hurts. And when it comes to Josh Allen and everyone just saying about how much they love him and his stats and the way he plays, and I get it because I've said it to you guys beforehand. He brings us back to a time where we romanticized about football. He gives off the John Elway, the Brett Favre type of feel, right? Big, strong quarterback, moves around the pocket, makes the reckless throw, does the reckless thing, but damn it, he's fun to watch. So we want to root for him. So I get all that. Statistically, he's awesome. He also still puts the ball on the turf a lot. He has been lucky in not losing as many fumbles as he has, though. That is a big criticism of me. Not everybody cares about that. I do, because I watch this team religiously. Most only watch on the primetime games. And the primetime games, again, statistically, he's awesome, which helps you get MVP. Which, again, with him and Joe Burrow, it's one beat him, one's almost beat him, but even the guy who beat Mahomes didn't win a Super Bowl. And we talk about these guys like they're the greatest on planet Earth, but if they haven't even, Burrow's at least been to a Super Bowl. Allen hasn't. This is the point, though, is if we are going to do this by the metric of sports debate television, all the pressure now is on Josh Allen, right? It has to be. Now you've been a runner-up a couple different times. You've been the top 5 3 or 4 years in a row now. You finally won your MVP. Now can you finally do it? Because we just saw the Eagles mollywop the Kansas City Chiefs. Just smack the absolute dog out of them. Buffalo lost to that squad. Like, I don't know what you want me to do with this. I mean, I know that Josh Allen is awesome, but I also know that he's reckless. And the other stat that I put a lot of stock into it that nobody else does is interceptable passes. But we're getting to a point where the AFC is again kind of like the Tom Brady era, where we all kind of think that Philip Rivers should have gotten one at least, right? Rivers should have gotten one. Roethlisberger probably should have gotten more. Manning probably should have gotten more. But we run into these, you ran into Jordan basically. And we are in the era now in the AFC where it's the same damn thing. Because you can't win a Super Bowl if you don't get there. And neither Mahomes, Joe Burrow's been to one, but Justin Herbert hasn't been to one. Josh Allen hasn't been to one. These guys they're all been in the league like 6 or 7 years now. And only one's even been to one. They're about to waste half of their career and none of them are even going to get to Super Bowl. And you got to figure, because only one team can make it, let's just put it hypothetically, right? The likeliness of Joe Burrow winning a championship now is completely cooked. I don't trust the ownership group. I don't trust them to be able to put a defense around it because you've already wasted 5-6 years of his career. Lamar hasn't been to one yet and has 2 MVPs. Justin Herbert hasn't even sniffed a Super Bowl, much less a conference championship. CJ Stroud is somebody who most people are high on. I'm not as high on him as most people are. But when you've already put it into the landscape of like, if this is supposed to be essentially the golden age of quarterbacks, and most of them are almost 30, there's a good chance that not one of those dudes is even going to get to a conference championship or a Super Bowl. So that's another reason why I put it in the angle of like when Burrow, again, when they went to the Super Bowl a number of years ago, it was, hey man, the Bengals can only go up. Nope. Because you can't trust everybody around you, dog. It's not just your team, it's everybody on the squad. And from the top down. And with how good we think the Ravens are and how good we think Lamar Jackson is, he hasn't been able to even get to a Super Bowl yet. These are things that it matters in the grand scheme of like what we think about when it comes, again, with legacies and how we move the goalpost on it. During the regular season, we talk about Lamar Jackson like he's gridiron Jesus, which, I mean, I've seen that man walk on water. It feels like I know what I'm watching, but again, like there's going to be a chance that he doesn't even get to a Super Bowl, man, and might even win another MVP. It's hard to do it. It's hard to win league MVP. It's hard to win Super Bowls. Spoiler alert. I just want guys to know that real quick. Y'all fellas need to just get that into the system right now. But the reason why I say that Josh Allen is under pressure now is because he's always kind of been the underdog, right? Now, you can say that not necessarily because they've been the favorite to win the AFC the last 2 years. It hasn't happened yet. So I think that we need to preface that. We need to be honest with ourselves of you've been the favorites to do this twice now and haven't done it once. In back-to-back seasons with who everybody mostly considers to be the best quarterback in the NFL. Well, now you got the hardware now, man. And this is where the MVP stamp really starts to matter. Because I don't think Burrow has an MVP, but he's been to a Super Bowl, and that's why he gets that label. Lamar has 2 of them, but hasn't been to one. So not being able or not having the label of MVP or not having been failed in a Super Bowl beforehand, the pressure is not really on you necessarily. Now that you have it, the MVP is going to mean something. And this is where the real scrutiny is going to come in, because if he doesn't, I know Justin Lee probably isn't watching right now, but every time that he comes into one of these things late, he goes, well, what Josh Allen slander did I miss this time? No slander. I'm just talking to you guys the way that y'all talk about everybody else. If the MVP is supposed to matter, and now he has one, the expectations all of a sudden rise, right? To me, I'm somebody where like, man, I know that guy's good at football, though. I know he's good. And we can agree on that. But just to dumb this thing down to he MVP, he good, he must win Super Bowls, like, nah, man. Trent Dilfer, dog, like he's the absolute catalyst for guy who has Super Bowl that we don't think is Super Bowl quarterback worthy, right? So there's always going to be there's tons of guys who have Super Bowl wins and rings from the quarterback position that we don't think are necessarily good. That's going to happen. But there's also guys who we know throughout the course of history that are great, but again, just ran to Jordan, basically. And this is where we're at with the AFC. But yeah, when it comes to Buffalo, I'm most hard on Josh Allen because it feels like everybody who's in love with this dude doesn't see the flaws. And I come up over the top of it, but I'm honest with myself about it, man. I'm here. I'm telling you guys right now. And my voice has been here for the last number of years about, I understand that he's awesome. I also understand that he's reckless. And y'all just need to understand that that's part of what makes him great. But if he can't figure it out and control it, he's not going to win one because he will be part of the problem. But I do want to address Josh Whiteman's question about what I would like to see Buffalo do in the offseason. To me, I've always been really frustrated when people try to tell me how close the Buffalo Bills are to winning a championship when they're not. It's just they're not as close as people think. The last number of years, New England's been inept on offense, just completely inept. The Jets, largely the exact same. The Dolphins have kind of been the reverse of that, where they've been kind of flashy on offense, but they also defensively they were good this past year. But they don't have like the true dude at quarterback, right? Because Josh Allen can win you games in the regular season all he wants to, and statistically put up games in the playoffs. We get that, but the offensive line to me isn't as good as what people think that it is. Mostly because Josh Allen does mask a lot of their deficiencies. I could see them going interior guard. I could see them. They definitely need to address wide receiver, but that was kind of something I've been telling you guys for the last couple of years now. Is well, not the last couple of years because Stephon Diggs just got traded this past offseason. Was they're going to miss a true number one wide receiver because what Stephon Diggs did at the end of last year, even though they didn't target him, he is the target. He's the focal point, which opens up things for all these other dudes. So now, when you don't have him, it looks ugly. It looks muddled. You're not going to get any dominant, 10, 12 target, 9 catch, 170-yard gains from anybody because you truly are spreading the wealth. But there isn't anybody on that roster that Josh Allen's like, that's the guy. I can go to him and I trust the separation. I trust the catch rates. I trust we have this rapport, and there's nobody there. So y'all can dog Stephon Diggs all you want to when he went to Houston, and obviously he got injured, but you don't know if that's going to happen when he's in Buffalo. Like those two things aren't correlated to each other. But to not have anybody who is a true number one wide receiver who he can just trust to go get him one, they are going to have to go ahead and get somebody. I don't know how they're going to do it. I think that's a lot of pressure on Keon Coleman well, he was a rookie, man. Like people were expecting him to just jump off the page, and he doesn't fit what they want to do. He's more of like the Plaxico prototype. He's the big red zone target, and Shakir is great for what they do, and he's an undervalued wide receiver, totally. But he also, so I got distracted by the chat real quick. He's good for what they do, but I don't think that anybody considers Khalil Shakir to be like a top 5 wide receiver. I think they need to get a real dude, like a real number one, because we use the term number one wide receiver way too often in this league. Just because you're number one on the depth chart doesn't mean that you're a true number one. Because I'll say it before, I'll say it again. The last time I did a poll of, hey, who are your top 10 wide receivers in the NFL? I got 20 plus different answers. So that alone should show you that there is inconsistency even from the fan bases of who is the best at what they do, because too much stuff matters. There's too many variables. But wide receiver, I think, would be nice. They absolutely have to retool the secondary. Micah Hyde didn't even really play this year, but he's gone. Poyer's gone. Kaiir Elam, I said this during the game when Benford got hurt. Said they're gonna cook Elam, and he was toast. They have to get another corner. Again, I don't know how they do it via draft or free agency or trade, but they've got to get another corner. They actually have to get 2, because I think Rasul Douglas probably has a couple more years where he can be legitimately. He's been really awesome for them the last 2 years, but he's getting up there in age. You got to get a corner, got to get another linebacker because of Milano, and a really great. I know it sounds dumb, right? Wide receiver, corner, linebacker, offensive line, but that's pretty much where they need to be at right now. But yeah, my biggest thing was just I'll get back to the chat for a second because man, that thing blew up again too. Just talking about Josh Allen and everything else, y'all need to understand that if he doesn't win a Super Bowl next year, the boo birds are going to start coming out. They just are. Like this is what happens. This has been my frustration with anything that's truly great. You get tired of it after a while, or it's the what have you done for me lately? What have you done for me now type of representation, which is going to happen if Josh Allen can't be. Could you imagine? We've already done this with Lamar Jackson. Oh, he can't beat the Chiefs. He can't beat the Steelers, and he can't beat like anybody else besides those 2 teams. Playoffs or Steelers and Ravens, or Steelers and Chiefs, and like whoever else they played in the playoffs. But the other 28 teams, he's annihilated. He's annihilated teams already. We're going to get to a point where that's going to happen with Josh Allen. All of a sudden, everyone who's been talking about how awesome he is going to have to start eating their words of, yeah, but you can't win with him. Like he's great statistically, He makes people around them better, but he can't get over the hump. He's not that dude. We're not that far removed. If he gets cooked in the first round or second round and that happens again, just put it on your calendar. You're going to start hearing that conversation pop up a lot more because that's just how these things work. Let me go over to this chat real quick. My goodness. Noah says Bills remind me of the mid-90s Knicks. Super good team, but couldn't get past the Bulls until Jordan retired. I mean, even still, just need Mahomes to retire and then it's Buffalo's time. Don't do that, man. No. Noah says just need Mahomes to retire and then it's Buffalo's time. Y'all told me that when Brady retired. Go to hell. I'm not rewatching that movie. This is stupid. Let's see. Heisman winners. Howard Kurtz. Oh, he said, what's good, man? He goes, Heisman winners rarely win in the NFL. He can be great at the end of the day. It's construction. Josh Allen is reckless, but even Elway got his rings, and that's the comp. I don't think that that's a fair comp, though, because Elway went on back-to-back years getting out. When Elway was prime Elway, he was getting smoked in Super Bowls and was losing all of them. Like he got to leave on his own terms on back-to-back Super Bowls, which nobody gets to do. And he was old as hell. Like it wasn't until they had the great defense. Terrell Davis was running through joints. And like, I understand. I agree with the Heisman Trophy winners in the NFL. There's a lot of them that flame out, but to do the comp to Josh Allen and Elway from the way that they play, I think is fair. But to say that the rings part is the thing that I think is going to be hard for me to kind of get to because I don't think that Allen, one of the things that makes Allen so great, and maybe this changes, right? Because I don't want to be so hyperbolic and say Allen won't be able to be great when he loses his legs. But that's one of the things that makes him great, though, is the escapability, being able to break tackles. But they haven't been using him in the run game more because they do need him to stay upright. They need him to be their quarterback and not the running back anymore. And they've done that, which has helped. But the comp is just too, but again, like Elway was one of those dudes who was super athletic, played baseball, he was the more reckless guy up front, but it wasn't until the very end of his career we actually got us to Super Bowls. But I think that I've alluded to this beforehand. I feel like we just need to get rid of the thought process of these guys are just going to play until they're in their 40s. Because we're going off tangent real quick, but this is a young man's game by most people's analytics, right? But now if they're all like, this isn't just Tom. Tom was the anomaly. And all these guys can't play until they're 40, right? All of them? Is that the expectation? Is that everybody who plays quarterback or everybody who's really great is going to have these long careers of 20 years? I think it's disingenuous. I think it's not in a way that you can really pinpoint that that's going to make sense. One guy's done it and was great. Like we've had Vinny Testaverde played till he was 40. Brett Favre played till he was 40. He had a great year in Minnesota, but these things, Father Time is undefeated, man. Like you're not going to have all of these quarterbacks playing until they're 40. We just got to stop with that. Noah says, LOL, Brady retires and Mahomes just came in and slapped you in the face like, oh, hey, yeah, he did. Thanks, jerk. I do want to get to Sirianni in a second, but Noah also asked me, is Josh Allen just Michael Vick 2.0 going to be amazing to watch, but will never be able to get the ring? I think that the Michael Vick 2.0 thing is, no, because the way that Michael Vick was the dude that anybody who played Madden, they were kind of like the Warriors in like 16, 17 when they had KD and Steph. And it's like, well, if you played Madden with the Falcons in 04, you just weren't good. If you used that Warriors team, you just weren't good. Josh Allen is a much better quarterback than Michael Vick ever was. He had a magical season in Philly, but those two guys are not the same person. Like, I know that I was hypercritical of him when he first came into the league, not because I was pissed that Buffalo drafted him. I had a problem they traded up to get him. And that's been a story that I've had on this show for the last 3 years, even though we've had three different versions of it. Um, I'm not mad that they drafted Josh Allen. I just didn't think that they needed to reach up to get him. Michael Vick, in every way, shape, and form, is not as good of a quarterback. The only pure speed, that's about it. Pure speed and elusiveness. But no, as much as I dog on Josh Allen, and again, it is only for me to come up over the top for the people who don't think he has any flaws. That might be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And that's being hyperbolic. But no, do those. Michael Vick has even been on record saying that he was in the league for like 12 years, even in or out of prison, where he couldn't even read a defense. No, man. But Michael Vick is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in NFL history. Non-athletes needed. I don't feel like I always use this phrase of I shouldn't have to give you the answers to the test. But people get pissed off when you talk about Michael Vick and Bo Jackson specifically. Michael Vick is one of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time, and Bo Jackson is one of the most overrated running backs at the pro level of all time. They were dope athletes. They were entertaining and super fun to watch. Go look up Bo Jackson's actual NFL stats. Just go do that for anybody who's watching. They are staggering how unimpressive they are, except for like 11 games of his entire career. It's pretty ridiculous. That's a little bit of sarcasm, but not by much. And Michael Vick was just super fun to watch. Come on, man. We're not doing that. Noah, I thought better of you, man. All right. Well, I want to get to the Sirianni thing just real. Like, no, I'm not gonna do Sirianni. We'll do this. We'll do Drake and Kendrick for a second. I know a lot of people. This thing is just like everything else in this country. Jesus. It feels like a lot of people either loved it or a lot of people hated it, and there's a very few just kind of in the middle of how they viewed it and what their experience was. I was somebody who I enjoyed it. I thought it was dope. I didn't understand every single reference that was going on with it because I don't follow the Drake and Kendrick beef as much as real hip hop heads and things like that, right? There's enough of it where I picked up on where I'm just thinking, yikes. Like super yikes. What is Drake doing right now? And I do know that Homeboy has to be not happy. And I don't know what he was doing because Australia is obviously in a much different time zone than where we are in the States. Oh man, what had to be going through that man's mind? I'm also wondering, like, how was he watching it? Not even just if he was, but like, was he at a club and they're watching the game and then they know that halftime's coming and he's like, yo, everybody turn off your phone. Nobody watches it, but then like he goes to the bathroom, he's watching it on his iPhone, just kind of like seeing, did he say it? Did he say it? Or it's like, no, he's like, nobody's allowed to watch it. We're not even, the man had to know what was going on. But that had to be a really awkward 20 minutes of Drake's life, man. I've heard a lot of rumors about like why things were said and things weren't said in Not Like Us. I don't know what the actual truth is because I was told he wasn't going to do it at all. Then I was told that he wasn't going to use Drake's name. And I was told that he wasn't going to use, the word. And all of it, well, except for, the word came to fruition and was like, yo, and on top of the fact, you got Serena and SZA out there and Serena's crip walking and like, it's just Kendrick is a diabolical man. Man, he's that's the if there's two dudes I feel like you don't want to like have legitimate issues with, like so many issues that they are National Geographics. You don't want to mess with 50 and you don't want to mess with Kendrick. I'd stay out of that. Drake is basically just younger Ja Rule at this point in time. Like Ja Rule is doing commercials for Greek restaurants and throwing, euros and pita bread at people for a commercial because he couldn't, because 50 bought out his entire. If you guys don't know this story, you need to look it up. There was a concert that Ja Rule was trying to do, and 50 went out and bought all the tickets for the first 3 rows, like a macaroni grill. So, well, there was a macaroni grill concert that Ja was supposed to do, and then there was another like bigger concert that Ja was supposed to do, and 50 went up and just snatched up like almost every single seat, every single ticket, and bought out, and Ja had to perform in front of nobody. John Ken or 50 and Kendrick, man, just leave those dudes alone, man. You don't want that. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and hang it up for the day. Y'all been listening to the Playbook Podcast. You can find the audio version wherever you get your podcast. Like, share, subscribe, smash the 5-star reviews. You guys know the drill. Stay up, stay blessed. We'll catch you guys, I guess, next Sunday. Not a whole lot of football talk. Maybe there will be. We'll figure something out. Catch you guys on the next one.